So you've decided to participate in Inktober 2024, or you're at least toying with the idea. Great! It's a wonderful opportunity to dedicate some time to your drawing, to playing with a story, or just trying something new. Sticking to the daily drawings for a whole month, however, can be quite difficult. So I would like to give some tips and tricks that helped me, and many others, to make it through the whole month as unscathed as possible. I feel that it's important to mention that I have struggled to finish Inktober some years, so I am specifically going to go over some of the things that tripped me up. And at the end of the day, remember, this is about you and your art journey, so think about what you want out of Inktober as we move through the tips. The drawing in the background is a prompt from last year, by the way, Toad, so you can see my process as we talk. Well, the first tip today is to plan things out. Now, obviously, you can see the pencil drawing on this drawing in the background, but I actually do significant sketching ahead of time. I like to take a look at the prompts as soon as they are out, which is actually September 1st each year, and I like to start brainstorming then. I plan thoroughly. The reason I do this now is because I tie all of them into a story. But even back in the day when I started my first Inktober, I would take a look at each drawing every day and it was a new thing. Some days I would immediately have an idea and dive in and it was a blast. But many days I would wake up or I would get to the end of my work day and I would look at the prompt and have nothing. So I chose over time to start planning out a couple days in advance at least. This helps with some of that awkwardness. You can't always control your mood and when you're going to have a couple minutes to sit down and draw. So if you've thought about the ideas at the very least, if you have some semblance of a plan, you're usually going to be able to move through it better. Now, I take this a couple steps beyond, where I will actually sketch out several different ideas and iterations for what that potential drawing might be. And you can take it even one step more, where you can see, like on this drawing, I have actually gone and done a pencil underdrawing, and this has allowed me to figure out the composition and where I want all those elements to be. But this first tip is just about planning things out to reduce the stress for yourself as each day you get into your ink drawing. Tip number 2, don't marry yourself to a single approach. I struggle with this. I have approached Inktober several times where it's like, I'm going to tell a story with all of these drawings, or I'm going to do all of these drawings in one kind of ink, or I'm going to not use color at all. This approach can work really well if you have consistent art practice already. If you know who you are, your processes are well defined. But for so many younger artists or artists who are taking on a challenge like this for the first time, it can be super detrimental to your continued progress. So whatever you think is going to be a good strategy for you, I would encourage you to follow that, to employ that strategy. But if you find that your drawings are taking too much time, that you're not having as much fun as you thought, then I would urge you to reconsider. Don't think that you have to stick to that particular approach, that particular way of drawing throughout the entire month. This has been something that I have done very hesitantly near the end of Inktober several years, and I felt bad about it. There's no reason to feel bad. You're in this for your own progress, for your own purposes. So I would just encourage you not to marry yourself to a singular approach. Be willing to change and be adaptable and malleable as it best serves you and your individual Inktober experience. Tip 3, don't be afraid to make small drawings. So this is very much tying into the point that I just talked about. The drawing that you are watching take place in the background here probably took me half an hour of planning, 20 to 30 minutes of sketching, and then the drawing itself took about an hour and a half. So that's a substantial amount of time. I generally work ahead on my prompts, and so I have, an additional 2 weeks, 3 weeks sometimes to work on these. But if you are just working each day, don't feel like you need to do an hour-long drawing, that you need to do something that is framed, that has a beautiful composition. It's totally fine to just draw a simple ink drawing for that prompt. So don't be afraid to do small things, and don't feel like you're less of an artist or you're not really participating like everyone else is. Not everybody has the same amount of time or the same bandwidth or, frankly, the same desires. So if you are trying to participate in this for the first time or you've struggled to finish it in the past, I would encourage you to make some of the drawings smaller so that they only take you 15 or 20 minutes to do. In fact, this year I'm going to be doing that with a lot of my drawings. I'm going to have tiny little cutaways that are just this same character putting on her shoes or putting on a belt or grabbing a journal and shoving it in her backpack. These are going to be quick drawings that I'm hopefully going to plan well enough that I can do them on days where I'm busy, but we shall see. Tip 4, don't limit yourself to black and white if you don't want to. Now, most Inktober drawings seem to be done in black ink, very much like what you're watching here. But there's no reason why that has to be the case. If you love color, if it's fun, if it's going to make that particular drawing just pop off the page, use color. I certainly have before. I don't do it all the time, but I'm also not in charge. I am not the god of Inktober. So if you want to use color, if it will bring you more joy, if it will make your idea function better, use color. Color is a wonderful tool, and especially if you're working on ink pieces like this. You know, I'm working with microns on this piece, and after the ink dries, it's essentially waterproof. It is a blast to take watercolor or brush pens over the top of something like this. It's one of my favorite things to do artistically. So don't shy away from color because you feel like no one else is using it. It doesn't matter, and it's also not true. Tip number 5, don't always go with your first idea. This is something that comes from being an art teacher for so many years. I encouraged my students, and in some cases pushed them, to always do at least 3 sketches, 3 different ideas for each piece that they would dive into. The younger students, in particular the middle schoolers, hated this because they would sketch out one idea, be super excited about it, and want to dive in. But time taught me that the more sketches you make, the more ideas you allow yourself to contemplate, generally the better the final product. Now, if you're only dedicating a couple minutes to this each day, you might not have the ability to do this, but you could chew on ideas in the back of your head before you dive in. I would encourage you, though, if you're doing longer pieces, things like what you're watching take place in the background here, I would encourage you to do 2 or 3 sketches to think of different ways that you can approach it. Often, our first ideas are not our best. And this is what played out in the classroom. Very seldom did a student who did 3 different sketches take their first sketch. And usually if they did, they would still take portions of the second and third sketches and implement those as well. So I would encourage you, just don't always lean on your first idea. Take another minute, another 2 to 3 minutes, and just think of a second or a third idea. You'll be surprised. Often you'll come up with something cooler. And even if you stick with that original idea, you are now more committed to it. You have an assurance that it is, in fact, a better idea. Tip 6, work ahead if it reduces your stress. So obviously I do this. I work ahead partially because I'm recording videos, I'm recording the content, I'm doing voiceovers and things like that. So if I were to try to do all of this day of, there is just no way I could guarantee that it would function. I would just not be able to put the quality of work in that I really want to. So if you find yourself in a similar position where you get stressed or anxious because of the daily nature of this challenge, I would encourage you just to work ahead. If you're on a Saturday and you're really enjoying the drawings, don't just do the drawing associated with that day. Do several working ahead. There's no problem with this. I know I've talked to some people who really feel like the spirit of the challenge is to do each drawing daily and that's it. You don't work ahead. If you fall behind, maybe you try to catch up. And I think that's probably true. That's probably like the truest way to embrace the month-long challenge that is Inktober. But at the end of the day, we're not competing with one another. We're not getting paid to do this. This is a thing we're choosing to do because it makes our lives better. It's an excuse to draw, to take part in something that many other people are. And so if working ahead reduces your stress and makes the entire thing more pleasurable for you, go for it. I don't think you owe anyone an explanation. Just go for it. I always work ahead. I have to because of the nature of this. But if this makes it a better opportunity for you, then I would encourage you to think about working ahead on your drawings. Tip number 7, and this is actually the final one, is community. I added this one at the last minute as I was putting this video together, but this is a challenge that a lot of people take part in. Obviously, the idea behind it is that you do your ink drawing and you share it on social media, probably Instagram. But even if you don't want to share there, I would highly encourage you to find a group of people who are also interested in working on this. I've reached out to several friends. When I was teaching in the classroom, I would often make it a substitutionary project that students could work on for the month of October. But whatever place you can find to have a group of people who you can chat with, who you can share your drawings, maybe you can vent about your frustrations about a particular prompt or even the prompt list, I would encourage you to do that. We have a Discord server attached to this channel, and I would love for you to check it out. It's in the description down below. But there are a lot of other Discord servers that work on artistic things like this. In fact, Jake Parker, who is the man who, to my knowledge, invented Inktober, has a Discord server as well. So you could just go there and check out his. But at the end of the day, it's less important to me that you join a particular Discord server or a particular community as it is that you find yourself a group of people that can work with you on this. It's more fun, honestly. Like, does it make your art better? Probably, but it just makes the whole process more enjoyable. And this whole thing is about fun. But I will throw in here right at the end too, that I have encountered more growth as an artist in these kinds of challenges each year than any other time of the year. It keeps me working on something. I feel some level of accountability. I push myself. I look up more references. I sketch more. I study more. I grow more in these situations than I do in any other as an artist. So if you are still on the fence, I would very much encourage you. Give it a try. Of course, there's no shame in not finishing either, but you can dive in and you can try it and just give Inktober 2024 a chance. Well, I hope these tips and tricks have been helpful for you. I hope that they will ease your nervousness about engaging in it, and I would love to hear which of them you really identify with or which is the most beneficial to you in the comments down below. Well, have a good one, y'all. See you soon.